never done a show this early in the morning. It's barely 8 o'clock. I don't really know how this will work out, but we got to do it because there's stuff to talk about. And the NAMM show is bearing down on me, which is not pinball related, but does take me away for about a week. So, lots of stuff to cover. We have the Arcade Expo and banning. We have more WrestleMania talk and other tidbits and happenings around the world of pinball. This will be episode 131 of Coast to Coast Pinball. Let's go. Welcome to Coast Pinball. My name is Nate Shivers. This is a podcast. This is a commentary. I am a man out of quarters, coming to you not live from the 19th floor of the Anaheim Marriott on Wednesday morning, January 21st, 2015. I am up here in Anaheim in Orange County next to the Anaheim Convention Center because my work has me here this week for the NAMM show, which is the big music industry trade show. The whole world converges on Anaheim, California every January to mix germs, get everybody sick, and talk about all the new guitars and amps and products that we'll all be selling for the next year or so. It's actually a lot of fun. It's late nights, it's long days, it's sore feet, it's voices going out. I lose my voice at this almost every year, so I figured I better get out ahead of it, get this show recorded so that I'm not too awfully far behind. Lots going on. I've been busy. I was sick too, so I actually started a show one night and only got about a minute in and couldn't talk, so I had to stop. Had a sinus infection. Good times, fun stuff. I'm sure you're thrilled to hear about it. So, let's jump right into what I want to talk about.
Trip reports.
Last weekend in the desert, in Banning, California, about an hour and a half, depending on how fast you're driving, northeast of San Diego. Probably an hour and a half due east of Los Angeles, and about 40 minutes west of Palm Springs, just off of I-10. The very first Arcade Expo was held. And I, myself, my lovely wife Teresa, and our good friend Zach, who I work with and play pinball with, who was on the show before, made the trek. We got in the car and left San Diego about 9:30 in the morning and drove up to Banning. When you get to Banning, you realize that there's not much in Banning. There's an outlet mall, there's a casino, and there is now one of the largest collections of pinball machines in the world in an industrial building in Banning, California. It's sort of completely out of place, yet perfectly makes all the sense in the world once you see it. So I went into Arcade Expo a little bit cold. You know, a lot of the shows that I've been to and expos I've been to, ahead of them, I was in like constant contact with the people running the show because they had maybe invited me or reached out to me, or I reached out to them and said, hey, I'm coming. Is there anything I can do to help? And I had briefly spoken with one of the organizers at Arcade Expo, and he had invited me to come up early and maybe get a preview of the place, but it's a couple hours away, so I never got a chance to, and I kind of just wanted to go play pinball. Because when you hear that there's going to be over 500 pinball machines and over 700 pinball and video games all totaled, that's pretty awesome. That's exciting. That's a big deal. So when I knew Zach was going to come with me, I knew Teresa was going to come with me, I didn't want to be podcast guy running around recording a bunch of stuff and just documenting. I wanted to just experience it, enjoy myself, and have fun. I also knew that this wasn't going to be the only one. They're planning on doing other arcade expos at this location. So I thought this would be fun. Just go up and play a bunch of pinball. And I knew the game list included lots of rare games and lots of games I just probably wouldn't see ever anywhere. So I went in very much just man off the street, no agenda, walking in. I didn't prepay for tickets. I didn't buy a Groupon. They didn't comp me as press. Nothing. I literally just walked up to the front and paid my way in. And so you get up there, and Banning is really a little desert town. There's no reason to live in Banning. I cannot see why anybody would find themselves living in Banning. If you live in Banning and you're listening to my show, which I doubt, but if you do, please explain, because I don't understand. There's nothing out there. Maybe if you worked at the outlet mall or worked at the casino and needed to walk to work, I guess. It probably gets really, really hot there in the summer. It's dusty, it's old. It is what it is. However, the industrial buildings that they have set up the Arcade Expo location in are absolutely perfect for exactly this. It's a big building, lots of space, and that's where we start our journey. So they have a parking lot, but we parked on the street. There was street parking. It's adequate. It's okay. It reminded me a little bit of the Papa facilities where, yes, they have some parking spots like on site, but not that many. So you end up parking on the streets and in the neighborhoods. And in Pittsburgh area, in Papa, I could tell that the neighbors were not real thrilled when I was parking in front of their houses. They must not like that. Banning didn't seem to be as much of a problem. Lots of streets to park on. You just got to walk a little ways. I had read the reports of the show opened Friday, and it sounded like Friday wasn't attended super well. And Saturday, when I got there was already quite a few people there, a decent line to buy tickets, so I could tell their attendance was doing better. We paid right at the front. It was $40 a head, $40, which I guess I should know that going to a show. I should look at how much it costs. Zach even asked me on the way up, he goes, how much is this thing? And I said, I don't know, $25, $35. It was $40. So we paid, we went in, and walking into the main pinball room it reminded me of when I was 17 years old and the first time I ever walked into a Guitar Center. I had been in lots of music stores before and seen lots of guitar shops. The first time I walked into a Guitar Center where there was like over 1,000 guitars on this giant wall of guitars, it kind of blew my mind a little bit. Same sort of experience walking into Arcade Expo. I walked in and I looked down the first row of machines and it just keeps going. You can barely see the back wall. I saw photos taken of this room all weekend and still up through right now. You can't get a good photo of the whole room. It's just so big. It's incredibly long. It's pretty wide. And it's just packed full of pinball machines. They have a very nice entryway that they've put together when you walk into the main building. They've got some different decor on the walls. They have like one wall that's all like painted like a circuit board. They had a wall that was all, like pinballs, like silver pinballs on the wall. It was pretty cool. Really good vibe, really good way to start. So you walk in, and right up front was mostly the DMD era games. So you had a lot of people up front, and we'll get into all of that stuff later. But I just wanted to walk the room. So Teresa, Zach, and I just sort of walked all the way down the room, and we started getting into the EMs and a lot of single-player EMs and a lot of games I'd never seen before. And it was amazing. It wasn't super crowded. We got there in the 11 o'clock hour, I think late in the 11 o'clock hour. It took us about 90 minutes, and we stopped for lunch on the way up, so about 2 hours. And it wasn't super crowded, and the farther back in the room you got, the fewer people there were, because the farther back in the room you got from the front door were the older games. And as you know, if you've been to these shows or been to arcades that have lots of pinball machines from different eras, the newer games tend to have the most attention. That's just kind of how it is. So we walked the room, saw lots of games, and just very first impressions I would give you is, oh my gosh, somebody, and I mean somebody as in a group of people, have put in a lot of work to this project. This is not just an empty building where people threw up some games out of some trucks. The games were organized. They were on brand new carpet. The ceiling was painted black. Had a good vibe. The place was clean, super organized. A clearly a massive output of effort and care has gone into this project, and that is awesome. I was just kind of blown away to see so many games under one roof and so well organized and clean. Just it first moment in, my expectations were exceeded right off the bat. So we walked through, and I think the first game we played, it doesn't matter. I don't remember. We started playing games, and Teresa immediately declared that everything Zach and I wanted to play was lame, and she went, looking for Attack from Mars, and that's fine. So Zach and I started playing a lot of two-player games, and Teresa would pop in, play some of them with us, play three-player games, and we just sort of wandered the room. You could not help but notice there were a lot of games turned off. That is the truth of it all, and you've seen it reported. From what I understand, Friday was even a bit worse as far as games being turned off. Games being turned off means they have a problem. Anytime you have this many games, you're going to have problems. It's just simply impossible to have this many games from this many eras and not have issues. I have 5 games at home, and I often have one with a problem. I get that. I totally get that. And I would never slight anybody, whether it's Arcade Expo, whether it's Papa, whether it's the Texas Pinball Festival where they're bringing in collections for the weekend, whether it's a place with 10 machines for having a game or two with problems. I totally understand it. However, when you're advertising, your main point of advertising for your event is over 500 pinball machines. It is disappointing to the man off the street, which was me, to walk in and quickly be able to count 100 games not turned on and not playing. And I did that. I did that on the day I was there in the first hour. I said, I've got to see how many games are off. Because Zach started commenting like, wow, there's a lot of games off. And it was a lot of games he wanted to play. He was really there to see early solid state, late EM games. That's really Zach's kind of wheelhouse. He loves the DMD stuff too, but he was really looking to see some of that era of games, and he was really bummed when a lot of the games he was sort of looking to play were turned off. And so I counted up to 100 and then stopped. There were more than 100 games not working Saturday. In their defense, in Arcade Expo's defense, there was also a team of techs working the whole time I was there. Like literally game to game to game to game, trying to get stuff up and running. It's since been said on the Pinside forums by folks, and including Clay Harrell himself, that he was even there working and helping getting games going. And it sounded like Clay felt there was a lack of some basic tools and maybe parts that he was needing to get games going. I've seen some mixed comments on that. What I would say is, on this subject, I do not want to make this the focal point of my trip report on Arcade Expo. I felt there were too many games not working to charge $40 for entrance on the busy day where you're going to wait for some of the DMD games. There was more people. It was certainly not crowded. I would not use the word crowded, but there were too many games I felt off, not working, etc., to charge $40. That price felt steep to me personally. Especially when the key hook for the event was the number of games. Because, yeah, I could sit there and look at some of these games, but they weren't working. The condition of the games. This was something that was really interesting to me because, we've known about this collection for a while. Remember, this is John Week's collection of games that he ran a Kickstarter for a year or so back to try and open this museum in this location based on crowdsourcing. And so we knew that this collection existed, and I was really interested. Anytime I hear that somebody owns 500 pinball machines, I want to know how'd they get them, where'd they come from, what's the condition of these games. And it was really, really mixed. It was all over the place. And you go to expos in like Texas Pinball Festival and Midwest Gaming Classic and these places where people are bringing in their games. Often the games being brought to those events are really, really well kept, really, really top notch, and people are showing them off. People are proud of their work that they've done to get their 25-year-old game playing and looking like it's relatively new. And this collection was mixed. This collection had some games that were beautiful, some games that were just fantastic looking, and there were also games that needed help, that definitely needed help, that had... playfield wear wasn't a big issue, which is, I think, the best thing. I didn't see a lot of issues with, like, that playfield's a mess or anything like that. Some of the older EMs had some flipper problems that I saw. There were just some leveling issues, which, man, it's 500 games. It's probably a pain to get them all leveled. But it was really a bummer to, find a game, A, that was working, and then B, had credits on it, because the credit issue became a problem also, because some eras of games that you can't put them on free play, and it may not be as easy to set to a low number to instantly give credits back. So there were problems finding games to play at times. We would go up to games and they just wouldn't work, and I think we had a stretch of like 5 games in a row and we were just laughing, like we couldn't get a game going. So it was a bummer to then find a game and then see the ball just like zipping to the left because the game was so out of level. So that was an issue. And these are all growing pains. These are all things that will get ironed out. I'm certainly not here to just complain, but this is my experience. But the condition was all over the place. The later model stuff seemed really good, really clean. The solid state stuff from like the 80s was a mixed bag, but some of them were fantastic. Just absolutely beautiful. There were so many rare games. I know that I posted a picture on Facebook and Twitter of Teresa playing the game Spirit, the Gottlieb game Spirit. I'd never seen one in person. It has one of what I think is the coolest back glasses in all of pinball, with the spinning material behind the face. I just think it's really neat. Crazy game, in great shape. You're just not going to see that many places. So there's all these different things, and it was a lot of fun. They had a tournament area in the back, and literally getting there on Saturday and leaving, with a planned leave time of 8 or 9 p.m. The tournaments did not fit with us at all, because their large tournament for the whole weekend, the finals were on Sunday. So if you weren't going to be there back on Sunday, it was of no use. And they had a adult, or like a parent-child tournament, I think, in the daytime Saturday, which wasn't us. And then they had a partners tournament that was, I believe, at 11 p.m. on Saturday night, so that wasn't going to be us either. So we did go back and say hi to the guy running the tournament, who was really cool, explaining everything. They had some nice games set up in tournament. They had TVs above the tournament games with cameras on them. A nice touch. I would like to see and I hate to use the word real, but I'm going to use it, a real tournament tied in with Arcade Expo. A Whopper point giving, top players from around the country, world, coming to real tournament. I think it's almost a shame not to, because the environment, the vibe, the atmosphere, I think warrants that sort of tournament happening. I love side tournaments. I think it's great to have tournaments that maybe top players aren't so interested in, or aren't just there to kill. I love having the partners tournament or the parent and child tournament. I think that stuff's all really good, and I would continue that. I would still really love to see a top level tournament. I know that this year they were right the weekend before It Never Drains in Southern California, Jim Belcito's tournament, and I know that could see you might have an issue getting top-notch players to come to both. I had thrown out months ago, like, man, why can't these guys get together and have in-disc at Arcade Expo? But I don't know all the politics and arrangements. I have no idea. I'm just some guy on a podcast throwing that out there. But it would be cool. They definitely have the room and the space to run a big tournament if they so chose to go that way. So, so the game issue was real. There were games that were out of credits that looked like they were on and looking good. You hit start, nothing happened because there were no credits. You had to find one of the techs who would then open the game and put credits on it. That's an issue that needs to be solved for real. The games being not working, for me to pay $40 again for exactly the way it was would be a tough sell, to be quite honest. I love all the pinball machines, but on the busy day where there was a wait for a lot of the games I wanted to play, and there were that many games out, I thought $40 was too much. I think maybe for the first weekend, sort of your trial run expo, the price probably could have been a bit lower. I know they were running a special in Groupon that I probably should have jumped on, but I wasn't totally sure on our schedule, etc. So there's my complaints. Clearly, this is going to be a fantastic place for the pinball world. If that collection, and I believe the majority of that collection is staying there. I think there was some games maybe in the foreign section brought in by a collector, but I believe the majority of those games stays there. It is now one of the premier pinball collections available for public play in the world, even if it's available on a limited basis. There's rumors the next Arcade Expo will be in October. We'll be looking out for that. I made a tweet and a Facebook post on Saturday afternoon that got me some interesting email and a ton of retweets and replies, and I'll address it now. They had been announcing, and they actually ran a Kickstarter, and I'm not totally clear on why there was a Kickstarter for this. I don't quite get the economics and why the need to have people pay in to do this, but there was, and it is. They ran a Kickstarter to break the world record for most people simultaneously playing pinball. So they had the Guinness Book of World Records people there to verify this, and they were going to do this. Cool, fine, whatever. It's a nice thing because you can send that out to media, and you can get media coverage based on that, because someone who knows nothing about pinball can at least grab onto the fact that, a Guinness record will be set here. And that's a nice little news bite for a local paper, a local TV show, an internet page, whatever. I get it. Totally understand. I think it's a great idea. However, at a little before noon, We had been in the pinball room for maybe an hour and a half, maybe just an hour, not very long. We had probably played a total of 7 or 8 machines. We had moved down to the DMD era machines and were playing some games. Zach and I were actually playing a 2-player Creature from the Black Lagoon where I was winning. One of the few games I beat him on through the weekend. Teresa was playing Attack from Mars with someone she just met. Just walked up and a stranger and her started playing together. And the announcement started. We will be shutting down the pinball room in 5 minutes. Please end your games. We're going to break the world record of pinball for most people playing pinball. And I kind of looked at Zach. And I'm like, oh, that's lame. We gotta stop. Because in my head, I'm thinking, okay, we're all gonna empty the room. They're gonna put everybody on a machine, break the record. We'll be out of here for 30 minutes or so, 45 minutes, whatever it's gonna be. So they threw us all out, and I shouldn't say threw us out. We all had to leave. They didn't throw us out, but they kept announcing it, made everyone leave. And so now you have hundreds of people displaced. And I would guess, since they had a new record eventually set of 330 games being played, you had somewhere in the range of 400 to 500 people now either in the video game room, in the lobby, or outside on the patio where they had food trucks and stuff to eat and drink, which was actually a pretty cool atmosphere. I like that. But everyone was out there, and it was crowded and kind of a cluster. So we went out to the video game room, and in the video game room they had vendors. They had Color DMD was there, Nifty LED, Marco was there. There was video games. There was a few pinball machines with some of the vendors. I know Nifty LED had an Addams Family and a EM that I cannot recall. Marco had a Walking Dead and a Mustang. So there's a few pinball machines over there to play. There were some really old school weird video games and like physical type games over there. So we definitely had something to do. So we walked the room, played some games. Zach decided to play Sega Cruising forever. 45 minutes passed. And I said, okay, they've got to be about done with this. So I walked back over to the lobby. There's like 100 people still jammed in the lobby in a line out the door and around the patio. And I realized they hadn't even started yet. So I asked one of the security guys, because I will say when I walked into the lobby and started looking over towards the pinball room, somebody put his hand in my face and said, you can't go in there. And I kind of laughed and I said, easy, man, it's okay. When are they going to let that room be back open? He goes, at least an hour. I said, really? An hour? And when I said that, the woman next to me, who I didn't know, kind of came unglued. And it was sort of funny. She got really upset. She goes, I drove 3 hours for this, and you're going to throw me out and not let me play pinball for over an hour? And I said, well, how long have we been out here? And I looked, and it had been 50 minutes, and he was saying over an hour. So I said, well, it's actually 2 hours as I stoked the fire. In the middle of the day, in the middle of the busiest day, with 500-some people there, the pinball room, which was clearly the draw for the event, was closed. And nobody got to play pinball for a couple hours. I was actually really upset. I stood there in the lobby and watched the security guards jump at people and yell, and I'm not exaggerating, I saw it with my own 2 eyes, yell at people that tried to walk towards the door where the pinball room started, because I guess they were very concerned about messing up the count for the Guinness Book of World Records thing. And I get that. They probably had to pay money to have Guinness out there. But the way this was handled was poor. I was really bummed. We left. We actually went and ate food again. I was bummed. Zach was really bummed. Many people were voicing their displeasure about the whole situation. It was not the best way to do things. I know that it was suggested that maybe this should have been done before opening or on one of the less busy days. I'm sure they had the problem of needing the bodies and the people there to actually break the record, so I get that. I just think that in the middle of the day, when you have all these people converging from all these different places to play pinball, basically making it no pinball for 2 hours is a really bad decision. It really bummed me out. It actually... I won't say it spoiled my day, but I think Teresa and Zach could both tell you I was grumpy. I was pretty grumpy. I wasn't feeling well either, and I just wanted to play pinball. I knew I was not going to be able to get around to all these games in the day I had, so I wasn't coming back Sunday, and I hadn't been there Friday. So I was really bummed. So there's my piece on that. Did I overreact? No, I don't think I did. Could I have rolled with it a little bit more? Oh, probably. But I was not choosing to. So I don't think that'll ever be a problem again, because I don't think they're going to do it again. I don't know. I just didn't see what it added to the experience to me personally, as a guy who just wants to play pinball. So that being said, the games. So many cool games. So many good games. And seeing all these DMD games with the color DMDs installed was awesome. I loved it. Teresa had never seen some of these games before. She's heard me talk about games like Congo, and there was a few others, like Ripley's Believe It or Not. She had maybe seen them in passing at the Hall of Fame a few years ago or whatnot, but she hadn't really gotten to play and see them, and she did at this show. She had a blast. She parked herself on the Tron LE, which was beautiful and looked great. She was very excited to have scored 20 million on that game. It was awesome. Zach had a good time. Zach had never seen Tales of the Arabian Nights. Zach, who loves pinball, who's a better pinball player than me, Zach had never seen a Tales of the Arabian Nights. This one had a color DMD. It was in really good shape, and he loved it. That went into his top 5 games instantly. So we had a really good time when we were playing pinball. It was a lot of fun. I think $40 for one day was too much money. It felt like too much to me, and I'm really dedicated to pinball, if you haven't noticed. But it felt steep to me. This very much felt like a first swing, a first effort, and I would give the Arcade Expo a good solid B. They got a B in my book. It was not an A. There were too many games down. I think the world record thing was a big annoyance in the middle of the day. But as far as where the heart is on this project, A+. Somebody's spending a lot of money on this, and we know who, and to him, thank you. This collection is going to be a jewel, especially for West Coasters, and it's awesome. And it was cool to see Tim Arnold, Clay Harrell, Roger Sharp. It was cool to see all these people from the industry out there supporting it and being a part of it. I really had good vibes about pinball while I was there and whatnot. It was nice. You had local people. I saw some San Diego folks. I saw Molly from 82 was there. So the support was there. People appreciate pinball. We all just want to play pinball. We want pinball to do well and thrive. I got to meet some great listeners of the show. I got to meet some Pinsiders. I met Steve. I met Mark. I met Dave. I met some people again who I'd met before. It was really fun. Had a blast. You guys flatter me. It's awesome. So very good. So that's my day at Arcade Expo. I can't wait for the next one, because I think that they now have heard enough of us folks talking about the games down that I fully expect. If they were running at 60% games up, 70% games up maybe, I think we'll be up way over 80% next time out, probably closer to 90%. So looking forward to it. I really hope that all didn't come off like I was complaining too much. Because when I stopped that segment, I thought, man, was I just complaining a lot about a pretty great show? I mean, it was a great show. The place is cool. It's awesome. Just wish more of the games were working, right? I think that's okay to say. I don't know. We'll see. Waiting for the hate mail. Waiting for the hate mail. That's okay. So, also at the show, Roger Sharp was there, and it was funny because we were so busy warring each other in games, myself, Zach, and Teresa, me losing a lot of them. I never actually had a chance to even talk to Roger and say hello. But I did go listen to his seminar, his kind of Q&A, where he just opened it up and took questions from the audience. And one of the very first questions was concerning his work with Dutch Pinball and the Big Lebowski. And I will tell you my takeaway is basically this. He says that the playfield is now approved by Universal. They have a final revision of the playfield. I don't know exactly what that is yet. I've not seen it. I don't know what was removed. I think I know what was removed. I believe they were going to pull the marijuana plant. They were going to pull the handgun, and I think there was something else small, just to appease Universal and what they want. That's done. Things are moving forward. That's good news. I don't know much else. I've had a lot of emails. I've had emails from people with money in on the Big Lebowski, like, "Hey, when are we going to know more?" I don't honestly know. But it's good, and Roger seemed to be very confident in the progress moving forward on the Big Lebowski. I know there's still people looking for refunds. I know that the company is still working out a plan on moving forward with U.S. operations. I have not actually jumped into those threads in the past couple of days, so if I'm saying all this and more things have come to light, so to speak, I apologize. But I do think that's an important note that Roger Sharp, who is the go-between now between Dutch Pinball and Universal Pictures, has said that the playfield is approved. I think he said the back glass had one final revision to go. He said that everyone can rest easy, just like he said on the show. John Goodman will be in the game. Call-outs of John Goodman will be in the game, etc., etc., etc. So I think as far as getting the game built and moving forward with the product as we know it, very closely as we know it, not maybe exactly as we've seen in working prototypes, but a really close version of that, I think it's full steam ahead. So that's happening. Since we last spoke about Stern's WrestleMania game, photos and a feature matrix, including the limited edition model, have come out. Also, John Trudeau has given some more insight into the game. There's been other folks from Stern. Stern was at CES where they debuted the game, and CES is a consumer electronics show. I believe it is the largest trade show in the country. This NAMM show that I'm sitting in front of right now is the second largest trade show in the country, last time I heard. But CES gets much more media coverage because it's consumer electronics, and literally nearly everybody in the country, maybe the developed world, has some consumer electronics in their life, so something plays. And Stern is sitting firmly in the middle of the video game section at CES, and they got a lot of press this year. They really did great. Stern had a fantastic CES. There's been so many articles, both in print and online, that have been linked and thrown around and sent to me to read about, the pinball resurgence. And we're in the middle of it. We're right in the middle of the pinball resurgence, so we see it happening as it happens in real time. Like, we see prices go up, we see games sell fast, we see things come back and contract a little bit, but there's been momentum, and that has not slowed down. Trust me. Seeing all those people and all those games in Banning, California, I can tell you pinball is still surging forward. Well, that's now starting to trickle out to the media, and the non-pinball world is starting to take notice. I think if you keep your eyes and ears open, you will see more mentions and hear more mentions of pinball just out there in the world. I've been listening to podcasts that are totally unrelated to pinball, where pinball gets brought up. And there's pinball fans out there, whether it's, a guy like Ryan Adams just talking about pinball all the time and bringing it up, whether it's, local magazines writing articles on the local pinball hall and how pinball's back, or it's these big trade magazines and electronics magazines talking about Stern at CES. There's momentum forward. So that was really cool to see all the stuff coming out of CES. With WrestleMania, coming out, I did the episode where I basically said, all the people who are going nuts on the forums and saying that this is a bad theme and it's a redneck theme and could you find a worse theme, I came out and said right off the bat, you are all wrong. You have it wrong. You're missing the mark. I think WWE is a totally viable theme. I think there's plenty of people willing to spend money on WrestleMania. I think that the theme suits pinball very, very well because it's loud, it's electric, it's lights, it's action. It's right up the alley for pinball. Works out great. So I didn't really want to talk about the game much more until I saw the LE, and I wanted to see what else came out. And a great resource, if you want to hear more about the game from the horse's mouth, as they say, from John Trudeau, the man who designed the game, is currently on the Broken Token Pinball Podcast. If you go download the Broken Token Pinball Podcast, they put out a very of-the-moment interview with John Trudeau, where Brenton Whitney actually interviewed him all about the game. And it's cool. It's really nice to be able to hear the designer of the game talk about what went into it, like literally right as it's being released. It also, I thought, pulled back the curtain a little bit in that you can hear, John talks about, if you haven't listened to the interview, John talks about, the design aspect and the physical aspect of the game, obviously because he did all that. But when you get into the conversation about the rules and the code, you see very quickly that the way it's set up at Stern now, the designer may not know much at all about what's going on with that until it's all done. We get this idea maybe that the designer is going to say, oh, well, this is what you'll do to do this. You'll like this and like this. It's not like that. You can hear that John doesn't really know how all the rules and features are going to happen on that game. It's interesting. He did say that the main program on the game, whose name escapes me, and I do apologize, and it's not Lyman Sheets, it's not Tanya Kleiss. I'm sorry, I forget the guy's name at Stern. but he did say he's a big WWE wrestling fan. And John said that was awesome, and he really liked that. So he was going to sort of let the programmer take the lead on a lot of the rule set to tie it and integrate it into the rules, because that's really important no matter what the theme is. Whether the theme is Mustang, whether it's Star Trek, whether it's wrestling, if the rules and the call-outs and the gameplay doesn't tie in really well to the theme, you'll get a disjointed feel. You'll get things that don't feel right. It'll feel slapped together. You'll get that feel of like, oh, well, they just sort of put a theme on a playfield and then just added shots. You don't want that. You want an immersive experience. So we now have the details on both the Pro and the Limited Edition. And the Limited Edition, the angle of that is very much old school wrestling. Instead of the current big superstar John Cena being front and center on the WrestleMania translate, you have the former big superstar Hulk Hogan front and center. And he's surrounded by legend-type wrestlers. Andre the Giant, The Rock, Stone Cold Steve Austin, The Undertaker, I believe Shawn Michaels is on the side, Ric Flair is on the cabinet. So you have the old school. You have gold trim, and you have some feature changes for sure. And I am a big proponent of not changing the gameplay between separate versions of a game. That really, it just bums me out, because when there's a limited edition, and they're only building 400 limited editions, they're going to be signed by Hulk Hogan. There's a little gold, plate down by the apron signed by Hulk Hogan, which is pretty cool. I think they'll sell all 400 limited editions. I don't think that'll be a problem for them. So will there be a premium? If you're worried about it, just assume yes. Yes, there will be a premium. Is that 100% sure? No, I don't think it is 100% sure. I'll tell you why. John Trudeau says in his interview on the Broken Token podcast that this game originally was slated only to be a pro model. So is that Stern sort of being aware that maybe WWE isn't a theme that the pinball community is just going to buy on theme alone? Possibly. Maybe it's their business model. Is they're able to get away with doing some of their games as only single pro models right now. Maybe they had a very fleshed out, feature-laden game, which I think they do to a degree, as far as the way it looks with the pro version of WrestleMania. But John pitched an idea to the team of having a LCD screen on the playfield that would mimic the Titantron, the big giant screen behind the wrestlers as they walk in. And everyone loved it, and that sort of, out of that was born the limited edition. So I'm a big proponent of stuff like that. Add in a screen where it doesn't change the gameplay very much. That's cool. Give me a different translate. Give me a different art package. Give me, a shaker motor. Give me all this stuff and make it a limited edition with the signed Hulk Hogan signature. That's awesome. However, WrestleMania, I'm afraid, is going to be one of those games where it is kind of different, where the game does play different, and there's not going to be that many of them. There's 400 of them. So as we go through the game feature matrix, let's look at the. I won't go through the whole things like I've done in the past on some of the games, but I just want to kind of call out a few things. Features where the limited edition has a check mark and the Pro does not. Ring Chaos Spinning Disc. All right, so they have added a spinning disc into the wrestling ring on the limited edition. So that is a actual, spinning, like whirlwind-esque, part that will randomly move the ball around more, that will spin the ball into places you don't expect it to go. That could be a pretty big difference, because that ring is a very central part of this game. A lot of the game is about lighting the ring by hitting the drop targets and getting up in there and having a match with your opponent. That's a big part of this game. Small third flipper for combos. So they've added a third flipper to the limited edition, and it's a small flipper. And you can hit combos with it, and there's a lot of talk about this flipper having some sort of arm on it that can knock the ball off the left wireform ball return ramp. John Trudeau actually said that originally the idea was that it was going to be a steel chair toy that knocked the ball off, as if you're hitting a guy with a steel chair, because that's a big part of wrestling's history. WWE did not want a steel chair in the game, and that's very much, I think, wrestling trying to promote a more family-friendly, kid-friendly product, less steel chairs being hit across people's heads. I know that they, just like the NFL, have major concussion issues going on right now, and if you've seen the NFL lawsuit with concussions, millions and millions and hundreds of millions of dollars. And I think the WWE is probably staring down the barrel of that problem too. So no steel chair, probably be a mod for somebody to do. But I think the big story there is a third flipper on the limited edition. Also, a 30-degree kick-out hole to set up the small flipper shot. So they've got this whole thing where the ball will be sent right to that flipper. Very different. The wham arm on small flipper knocks ball off lep ramp to complete combos. So that's what I was talking about. It was originally going to be a steel chair. Now it's an actual arm. So basically, you're going to hit a shot, and then the ball's going to be running down that wire form, or the left ramp, I guess they're calling it. And it'll say, knock the ball off, clothesline the ball, or whatever the call out will be. And that's how you'll actually complete the shot, is knocking the ball off with the small flipper arm. All right? Both Pro and LE have a left to right upper level orbit shot control gate, so you can actually hit a left to right orbit. But as far as a right to left orbit, the other way, only the limited edition will you be able to hit orbit shots both ways. It changes gameplay quite a bit right there. 3 wireform ramp returns on the Pro, 4 wireform ramp returns on the limited edition. Those are the major differences there. A lot of the rest of the stuff is the trim, the back glass, the artwork on the actual playfield is different. I'm really bummed anytime I see it. I think the LCD, the Hulk Hogan autograph, the trim, those things, and maybe some different artwork, I think those, and maybe just the spinning disc in the ring, would have been enough to sell a limited edition in a limited number. All that stuff, all those features lead me down there's probably going to be a premium version made. Because that's a lot of extra stuff just for 400 games, I believe. And that bums me out. So, very much looking forward to playing the game. I have high hopes for it. Looking at the actual shot map and kind of going through the game, as much as I'm totally defending the theme itself, I will say I don't feel that there's a million things to do on this game. I think there's a chance with this game, just looking on layout alone. And I hate to prejudge before I've played. But looking at layout alone, you've got your 3 drop targets in the middle. You've got your 2 steel ramps. I'm just worried that there's not going to be enough to do on this game. And that ring with those bumpers controlled by the flipper buttons, that's going to grow old. I don't know. I'm very curious. It was funny. I was playing Jokers at the Arcade Expo. Pinball game Jokers. And I realized, this is a lot like WWE WrestleMania, where you hit the ball up into this upper plastic playfield with, posts on it, with rubberized posts. And then the ball trickles down. And that's very much what WrestleMania looks like. I don't know. I may be totally wrong, and I think the rules are going to be a big deal to this game. I love, the idea of moving your way through the different championship belts and having the different wrestlers, fighting the different wrestlers. I think there's a lot of potential here, and if they do it right, this could be really awesome. But I'm just a little touch worried that that wrestling ring is going to drive me insane, where the ball's always going to be going up to that ring and then having to funnel its way out and down. I don't know. That's just my little fear as far as gameplay goes on WrestleMania. One of the other big stories on this game that I did not talk about on the last episode is the move to their new board system, the new Spike system. This is getting away from their SAM system. And they were showing this off. Marco actually had this on display at Arcade Expo, so you could see it in person, and this was a big deal at CES for them. And they're showing you how many fewer parts, fewer boards, less wiring there is with their new system, where everything is, lights on circuit boards all run off this one board. The actual translite lighting is no longer a big neon tube. It's actually just LEDs mounted on the actual Spike board. This is a good thing. I think this is a good thing. I don't love circuit-mounted LEDs. That sort of is too bad for me, as far as a guy who really loves to swap out LEDs and color match and do things like that. But I think that's just the way things are moving, I suppose. So, there's certainly an advance here And I think that for Stern, building games and trying to keep the price down, or even lowering prices on some models, this is probably something that's pretty important. We see the WrestleMania Pro model is retailing at $54.95, and that is $500 less than the Walking Dead Pro. So the price just went down on their Pro game, and I think that's a story that should be noted. I think that there's a sweet spot in pricing a new in-box machine right now that Stern is probably keenly aware of, and keeping that price into that range where you can buy these from distributors at a certain price to move a certain amount of games. So I think time will tell on WrestleMania. I think the thought process, the overwhelming kind of hatred towards the theme that we saw on day one has definitely shifted, and it seems like people have warmed up to it a little bit, or at least warmed up to the potential of this game being good, because I think a lot of the features look cool. I think the quality looks nice, and it's a different layout than we've seen. So very excited to play it. Cannot wait. All right, that's going to do it for episode 131. I've got to get up. I've got meetings today, got things to do. I've got lots to talk about still. We need to get to episode 132 as quick as possible. I've had Zach come over and play My America's Most Haunted. I've had Gene X Wong stop by the Coast2Coast Pinball Studios and play My America's Most Haunted. I have their feedback. I have tons of email, and we've got things to look forward to. The Papa 18 is not far. Is it Papa 1918? I can't even remember. That's terrible of me. But I know Papa is coming up very soon. The World Championships of Pinball. I'm going to get there at least on a Sunday, if nothing else. The Texas Pinball Festival is right after that. And March is a very busy month. It Never Drains in Southern California is this weekend. I don't know if I'm even going to get over there. It's literally 20 miles from here, from Anaheim, where I'm at this convention. We'll have to see how it goes. It is Pop 18, by the way. I'm not a moron. And hopefully I can get over to Indisc, see how that action goes, maybe throw some money at the tournament, and donate towards the winners. As they say, my voice is going. Thank you guys for listening. I appreciate all the great feedback over the last few weeks. We will talk to you again in episode 132 as soon as possible. Take care.